with me, please, in your Bibles to Galatians chapter 6. Galatians chapter 6. I'm going to be reading from verse 1 through to 10. Verse 1 through to 10. Last week we began to speak about wholeness. We started a series on wholeness. And I said to you a quote from Peter Scazzero, a very powerful quote, where Peter Scazzero says, "It is impossible to be spiritually mature whilst at the same time remaining emotionally immature." It is impossible to be in a place where you are spiritually mature whilst at the same time remaining emotionally immature. How many of you know that it is possible in your life to use God in order to run away from God? It is possible in your life to use God to run away from God. You can do a lot of Christian activities whilst running away from God. You can get involved in church, in prayer, in reading the Bible, in talking to people who you deem to be powerful men and women of God. You can do all sorts of religious activities, and you can use those activities to run away from God, because while you're doing those things, you remain suppressing the stuff that God wants to expose. Amen? How many of you know that that's a place where we are self-deceived? It's one thing to be deceived by another person. It's quite another thing to be self-deceived. And I quoted to you something that Dave Pawson said, and I still remember it was 1995, and I was listening to this message tape by Dave Pawson where he said, "What is the most tragic situation a person can find themselves in?" And we think to ourselves, oh, loss of a loved one. Oh, going through a divorce. Oh, experiencing this, experiencing that. And he went on to say the most tragic situation a person can find themselves in is to go through their whole life thinking they're on the right side of God, when in actual fact they're on his wrong side. How many of you know that it's one thing to be on God's wrong side and to be fully aware of it? It's quite another thing to deem yourself a Christian, to deem yourself a mature person, but in actual fact, you're an infant in Christ. And so this issue of wholeness is crucial. It's extremely important. Galatians chapter 6 verses 1 through to 10 is an important passage of scripture, because what do we see in Galatians 5? The fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness. We see the fruit of the Spirit. And I believe that in Galatians chapter 6, what Paul begins to describe is the practical outworking of that fruit. Amen? That yes, I'm manifesting the fullness of God in my life, and this is its impact. I'm walking in complete patience. I'm walking in complete love. I'm walking in complete joy. But how does this manifest in the nature of my relationships with people? So verse 1 says, "Brothers and sisters, if someone is caught in a sin, you who live by the Spirit should restore that person gently." I'm going to read the whole passage. "But watch yourselves, or you also may be tempted. Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. If anyone thinks they are something when they are not, they deceive themselves. Each one should test their own actions. Then they can take pride in themselves alone, without comparing themselves to someone else. For each one should carry their own load." It's a very powerful statement there. "For each one should carry their own load. Nevertheless, the one who receives instruction in the word should share all good things with their instructor. Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. Whoever sows to please their flesh, from the flesh will reap destruction. Whoever sows to please the Spirit, from the Spirit will reap eternal life. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest, if we do not give up. Therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all people, especially to those who belong to the family of believers." May the word of the Lord be blessed this morning. And the saints said, Amen. Isn't God's word so rich? Say to the person next to you, I love my Bible. I love my Bible. For some of you, I know that was a faith statement. As you were saying it, you're like, but Lord, aren't I conning? It's okay. In Christian circles, we can just make declarations. In seed form, I love my Bible. No. All right. So I want to unpack 6 signs of wholeness. Now, there are many more signs, but from Galatians chapter 6, I want to share with you 6 signs of wholeness. What does it look like when someone is whole? And last week, I shared with you that wholeness is the same word for being complete, having no missing parts. When you get a toy, a new toy for your kids, and all the parts are there, you say, the set is complete. When you get a jigsaw puzzle, you say, are there any missing parts? And you get very annoyed if you get a new set, a new jigsaw puzzle, but there are missing parts. Amen? So being whole is having no missing parts. And I started to unpack to you that when you've got missing parts within yourself, you seek to complete yourself by looking for those parts in the wrong place. And that's a form of idolatry. And now today I want to share with you some signs of wholeness. What do whole people look like? When you can safely say this person is whole, what do they look like? The person can come and you can say, hey, there's this dude I really like. Pastor, you know, he used to be the worship leader at our old church. My key question, number 1, yes, he might have led praise and worship, but is he whole? Has he got missing parts? Yes, he might have been a Bible school teacher, but is he whole? Because when someone is not whole, they become unsafe. How many of you know that you've got safe people and unsafe people? And to the degree to which we have missing parts in our souls, we are unsafe people to be around. Amen? So let's have a look at Galatians chapter 6, verse 1. It says, brothers and sisters. So ladies, there's no room to wriggle out of this one. No, because there's certain scriptures when you look in the original language where it's just referring to men. When he says, I wish that all men ever would pray. When he says that in Timothy, the word that's actually used is dudes. So dudes should pitch up to prayer meetings, not just women. Amen? Okay, but here it says brothers and sisters. So this is a message to everyone here. Is there anyone here in this room right now who's none of the above? If this was a multiple choice. Is there, all the brothers in the house say, yo! All the sisters in the house say, hi. Now, did anyone not say anything? Okay, so we're covering everyone. Amen? Brothers and sisters, if someone is caught in a sin, now that word caught, in some translations will say overtaken. It literally means if someone is overtaken by sin. And the word that is actually used there is a very interesting one. It speaks of how, you know, when you're all like waiting to eat or waiting to be served, and then someone overtakes you, eats the food without giving you an opportunity before you have an opportunity to eat. That's actually the word in the Greek that's used there. And how many of you know that sin does that to us? Sometimes we're overtaken by sin. It consumes whatever needs to be consumed. And then it's like, but what happened? How did that take place? Amen? So if someone is overtaken by sin, if someone is caught in a sin, you who live by the Spirit, you who manifest the fruit of the Spirit mentioned in Galatians chapter 5, what should you do? Do you just ignore it? Do you just pretend it didn't happen? Do you say, oh, you know what, I'm a loving Christian, so let's just pray for him or her? It says if you're a spiritual person, if you're a whole person, if you're complete in Christ, you who are spiritual, you who live by the Spirit should restore that person gently. That word restore in Bible school, I know my wife has been teaching on that particular word. It literally is the word kata tizo. It literally means to make whole again. Amen? So when someone is overtaken by sin, the job of those who are full of God's Spirit. The job of those who manifest the fruit of the Spirit is to come in gentleness and say, I want to take you through a process where you're whole again. It's a word that literally speaks of to mend something. It's a word that is used when the disciples were mending their nets, fixing their nets. It's to perfectly join together. So those of you, maybe you've backslidden in your life. Maybe you've come from backgrounds where things were just really terrible. God wants to restore you so that you're fit for use again. That's what that word restore means. To make fit for use again. It's like when an old dingy car is rebuilt, it's restored for use. Amen? Now here's the interesting thing. Whole people who are full of God and complete, are able to do that in gentleness. You see, when you are not whole, if someone is struggling with a particular thing, you will either avoid it, if you're not whole, because you're like, if I shoot straight with this person and try and restore them, what will they think of me? Because you need acceptance from them, because it's a missing part in you. That rejection, it's a missing part in you. You are not full of the love of God. You haven't got a full revelation that God loves me so much. Even if I'm misunderstood by this individual, God still loves me. Can you see how when you're whole as a person, you're able to restore others? Some of you are in a space in your life where you just think, I'm just battling with my own issues, let alone restoring other people. God wants to take you to a place where you're whole and you're complete in Him, that you're able to restore, but to do it with gentleness. You see, the person who is not whole, when they find out about someone else's sin, they then gloat over that situation. They then, you know those kind of people, if you tell them about a weakness, if you tell them about a mistake you've made, it seems to energize them. They suddenly, this zeal just comes, what you should actually do, number one, and you say to yourself, what's going on here? They're not manifesting what it says here, because it says you should restore that person gently, and then it goes on to say, but watch yourselves, or you also may be tempted. But watch yourself, or you also may be tempted. Do you know what's interesting about that word, watch yourself? We're talking about this with my wife the other day. If you read in the King James, it just says, considering yourselves lest you also fall into temptation. How many of you have read that? Considering yourselves. So it's kind of like, just be careful, just consider. That word there in the Greek is actually the word Scorpio. Probably where we get words like telescope from. It literally is a strong word that literally means examine yourself thoroughly, lest you also fall into temptation. Now, how many of you know that if you're restoring someone, if you're fully examining yourself in that same area, it actually affects how you speak to that individual. If you have not fully examined yourself in that area, you won't do it with humility, but you'll do it with pride. Amen? So people who are whole are able to restore others gently. You who are spiritual, that word spiritual is the word non-carnal. You who are spiritual, you're able to restore, you're able to mend, you're able to repair, you're able to complete thoroughly, to perfectly join together. How many of you need restoration in your lives? How many of you want to be restored? You see, many of us, we become Christians and we are consumed with right behavior. There's a difference between right behavior and restoration. See, when God restores you, you become full in your revelation of Jesus. That's where He's taking us. And today the church has wasted a lot of time trying to change people's external behavior instead of giving them true restoration. You can only do that if you are whole. Amen? You see, as long as you are not whole, you will be hindered with regards to purity in ministry. What do I mean? I'm meaning serving God from a pure place. You see, as long as I've got missing parts in me, I will be energized by your shortcomings. Because I will need you to fall so that I look good. I will need you to need me. Amen? And there are a lot of people who minister from that place, and we need to seek God and say, Lord, search my heart and see if there's any wicked way within me. like King David did, because any of us can be in that situation. How many of you know that many people end up burning out as they minister because they're ministering from the wrong place? They're not ministering from the fruit of the Spirit. They're not ministering from a place of wholeness. Many people today are ministering from a place of guilt. Many people today are ministering for themselves. That, you know what, I feel guilty if I don't go to a prayer meeting. I hate this feeling of guilt. So in order to get rid of this feeling that I'm very uncomfortable with, this feeling of guilt, let me go to the prayer meeting. The guilt has gone away. So can you see what's happening? You're not doing it from a place of wholeness. And so the ministry isn't pure. How many of you know that you can only impart what you have? You can only give away that which you've received from Jesus. So a lot of people are ministering from a place of guilt, fear, condemnation, not from a place of that which I received from Jesus, I'm now giving to you. Amen? Secondly, when you are whole, you have an accurate self-concept. You see yourself aright. If you trace all the problems you have, a lot of the problems you have within your soul, a lot of them, I promise you, boil down to how you see Jesus and how you see yourself. A.W. Tozer, a quote I like by him, he once said that one of the most profound things for a Christian to know, the thing that would have the most impact, is their perception of God. If you start with your perception of God and see God the Father aright, and see Him, and then see how He sees you, a lot of stuff changes. Now, when we talk about this accurate view of yourself, look at verse 3. It says, if anyone thinks they are something when they are not, they deceive themselves. You know what conceit is? Conceit is where you have a higher estimation of yourself than what's really happening on the ground. And conceit manifests in many different ways. For example, thinking you're a loving person when you're not. It happens in marriages a lot. No, but I love my wife. No, but honey, I love you. No, but look, I do this and this. I love you. But she's not feeling any love. She's like, give me love, give me love. And just, no, but I love you, I do this. Thinking you're something when you're not. Amen? Thinking you're something when you're not. Thinking you're smart in an area when you're not. It happens a lot. Even in church circles. I've done this and this and this before. Especially people who are performance driven. And then when you say, okay, can you do it? Then you actually see that they genuinely were believing their own praise. They genuinely thought they were here, but they're actually here. Amen? Thinking you can cope with things when you can't. This happens a lot. Part of self-awareness, part of self-knowledge is actually knowing what you can do in an estimated amount of time. And you know the kind of people who say, in the next 2 weeks I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. And then afterwards they spend the next number of days canceling appointments that they had made, and that's a pattern in their lives. Canceling those appointments, apologizing to people, and relationships are affected. What's happening? They're not whole. Why are they not whole? They don't have an accurate view of themselves. Part of your self-awareness, part of your self-knowledge is actually knowing and having a general idea of, this is what I can cope with, these are my limits, and this is what I can't do. Amen? It's so important. It's part of emotional maturity. Okay? Thinking you can't fall when you can. Those of you who've been attending Bible school, you'll remember I was sharing with you that 100% of the pastors who've fallen into adultery, according to some research that was carried out, I think it was 246 pastors in the States, that 100% of them, you know what the common denominator was? If you were there, you're not allowed to say. Okay. None of them thought it could happen to them. They thought they were something when they were not. When you are whole, you have an accurate view of yourself. It's not distorted. I mean, the worst thing is, I don't know if you've noticed, those of you who watch Idols, that's the worst, isn't it, sometimes? When you see these people and you think, maybe their mom, who convinced them? Who convinced her to go? And the thing they do well is they'll have all the poses. They'll look just like that person, from that music video and so on. But how they look and, the style, whatever they do, doesn't, the voice and that, and we all sit there and we're like, oh, did someone con them? Did she lose a bet or something? Get what I'm saying? And we laugh about that, but we are often doing it in our own lives. Here's the scary thing about an accurate assessment of yourself. We laugh when it comes to conceit. We laugh when it comes to superiority. But it also applies to an inferiority complex. It also applies when you look down on yourself, because that's actually a form of pride. False humility is a form of pride. Humility is agreeing with the word of God, saying, God, if you say this is me, if you say this is who I've become in Christ, then I agree with that. Who am I to say, no, Lord, I'll just be a doormat? And there are a lot of people who've become doormats. You see, when you don't have an accurate view of yourself, you are either a doormat or you become arrogant. You either become a narcissist, one who loves himself too much, or a doormat. Which are you? See, because I know some of you have thought that being a doormat is holiness. Letting people tramp all over you, that it's holiness. It's not. Especially when it comes from a place of lack of wholeness. When you do it by choice, it's a different story. You can have two people who allow people to mock them. And the one is doing it from a place of wholeness, where they're saying, this is part of my persecution because I'm preaching the gospel and they're mocking me. It's okay, let me keep preaching. And you can have another person who's doing it not from a place of, this is godly persecution, but they're doing it from a place of fear of man. Same behavior on the outside, different motivation. Amen? I like the words here. If anyone thinks there's something when they are not, they deceive themselves. That word deceive is the word delude. I mean, that is he was deluded. They deceive themselves. It actually speaks of a mind misleader. It's where your mind is besieged, that you think something that is not true. And you know how it often manifests, this deception? It's where you are praised by the world or carnal Christians for certain things. Yeah? When everyone gives you props, when you even get promotions at work sometimes, and your boss says, well done, and everyone is praising you, but heaven is not applauding. That's where the deception comes in. I don't care how many of you come and you say, Paul, nice message, great message. I still have to go before God and say, Lord, did I preach it with purity of heart? I appreciate the compliments, but did I preach it with purity of heart? Because I deceive myself if people are saying cool stuff, but heaven is not applauding. And you see, many of us, we've made idols of the opinion of man. We're so concerned about people's opinion of us, and it's something for us to repent of because it's become idolatry. And God is just saying, but what about my view? Have you asked what I think? That's why Jesus said, I do not receive the honor that comes from man, but I receive the honor that comes from heaven. That's wholeness. That's wholeness. So whole people have an accurate view of themselves. Maybe you're in a situation where your extended family keeps applauding. Your extended family is just like, whoa, I just admire. Oh, look, she's got this new thing and this new that and this new, ooh. What is God saying? See, the devil doesn't want you to pursue Jesus. Devil doesn't want you to pursue Jesus. And so what happens is he sometimes orchestrates situations where people will just stroke you, stroke your ego, say this is cool, and you gravitate away from the purposes of God because you gravitate towards a need-based Christianity. How many of you know that God has called us to do an assignment that's from heaven? God has called us to look at what's going on in heaven, and as we see what's happening in heaven, we infect earth with it. As opposed to, oh, these people want this. Oh, they want that. that. Oh, they're applauding me for that. Woo! And that's where a lot of unwhole Christians live. Constantly responding to the cries out there and never looking and saying, what's the heavenly blueprint? Now, if you want to be in a place where you have an accurate view of yourself, I just want to paint a picture of the scripts that are used by a person who's whole. A person who's whole, this is what they're saying to themselves. Ask yourself, are you saying this to yourself? I hold myself in high regard despite my imperfections. So I'm not trying to be perfect. My goal is, am I growing as a person? Am I in love with Jesus? Oh, God looks at me and says, wow, that's my son. And that's the emotional state I live in. I don't live in an emotional state based on my circumstances. I don't live in an emotional state based on other people's opinion of me. My identity and acceptance is in Christ. I am worthy to assert my God-given power in the world. Isn't that powerful? Whole people are powerful. Whole people feel, hey, I'm worthy to assert what I want to say to the world. Amen? Why? Because you've been sent out. You're an ambassador of God's kingdom. He's commissioned you. That's how he sees you. The world needs me. Say to the person next to you, the world needs me. How many of you felt funny saying that? How many of you found it a bit awkward saying that? But that's what the word says. The fact that you felt awkward means you don't say it enough. It means you don't say it enough, you don't think it enough. The world needs me. What will you do when you recognize that the world needs you? You begin to minister to the world, don't you? And you begin to believe that, man, I can actually make a difference. And then your focus is on the world and ministering to the world as opposed to how good do I look? Will the world reject me or not? No, the world needs me, whether they know it or not. How many of that with our kids? Sometimes we're in a place where they might not appreciate everything we do. And sometimes my wife and I will sit and we'll say, yeah, no, but I know they didn't say thank you for that, but they don't really know what they need. But we must just keep doing it. Amen? Did you get that? Yeah. You just keep doing it, not whether they accept it or not. You keep doing it because you have a revelation that the world needs you. God validates me. That's a powerful thought. God validates me. God is the one who endorses me. God is the one who approves of me. God is my ultimate boss. I am worthy of being valued and paid attention to. You see, like I said to you last week, you'll always live out how you see yourself. And if your insides are messy, not as in Lionel or Lionel or Leo, but if your insides are messy, guess what's going to happen? You project that onto your outside world. So if within you, you feel, you know what, I'll always look from the outside in, and there's a root of rejection, you'll project that on everyone around you, and you'll say to everyone around you, yeah, you guys don't like me, you guys never visit me, yeah, you guys are, and you will look for that evidence to match up and to align with your internal world. Now, it doesn't just happen concerning rejection. It also happens concerning competence. If I think I am stupid and I've got insecurities around my intelligence, at any meeting or so, I'm not going to speak out because I'm going to be like, I'm just so afraid that I'll say the wrong thing and they'll think I'm dumb. And then if your boss or someone comes to you and says, you know what, we just need to tweak this a little, you then react. Like, why are you reacting? Yeah, because, you know, you guys, if you don't think I'm good enough for the job, then you just do it. It's like, we just wanted to tweak it. No, you guys just do it because you obviously think that I'm not good enough. I mean, I don't know why you gave me that, but why are you reacting like that? It's because your insides are messy. You know how the brain works. You always have to align the outside world with your internal world. So ladies, if you think you're unattractive and a guy comes to you and says, sure, nice outfit, what are you going to do? But your insides are telling you, I am unattractive. You're going to think, he says that to all the girls. That's what you're going to do. That's what you're going to do. He says that to all the girls. Or he wants something. Or he's just a charmer. Amen? Okay, I got the ladies' attention there. Okay? I am entitled to joy and pleasure. How many of you feel guilty when you're enjoying something? It means you're not whole. You see, what guilt does, it produces condemnation in your life. And the Bible tells us that He's given us all things together for our enjoyment. He wants you to enjoy life. God wants you to enjoy life. Some people assume that whatever the purpose of God on my life is, it's going to be something terrible, something I don't want to do, something I'm just going to be like, oh, I'm just miserable all the time. God the Father is not like that. Amen? He wants you to enjoy life. How many of you, before you can enjoy any pleasure in life, feel you have to have worked really hard? How many of you live your lives on a reward system where it's like, oh, no, I can't watch that movie. I haven't put in X amount of hours. Some of you live like that because you can only enjoy pleasure when you've just worked hard for it. Amen? How many know that there are times where God just wants to bless you? I feel that I don't say to my children, oh, before I can give you this juice that you like, or these burgers that you like, I want you to run 20 times around the building, you know? And then when you're really feeling tired and you're like, as your reward, here's the juice. Do you do that to your kids? I hope not. Now, there are times you'll say, guys, do your homework first, and then you'll be able to play later. But we grow up and we're now adults working so many hours a day at work, and we feel guilty if we just want to watch a little movie on the weekend. We're like, no, I can't be doing that. I can't. Some of you are in that space, and it's because you don't have a revelation of Father God. Amen? I'm entitled to joy and pleasure. Some of you don't even laugh anymore. You feel funny. You feel like I'm being silly when I pack out laughing. And real laughing. Not just tee-hee-hee, but real laughing. Some of you struggle with that. Seriously. And if you explore the root, you're punishing yourself. You're trying to punish yourself for guilt. And I'm no longer allowed to laugh. Laughing is evil. You don't say that, but when you do laugh, you feel funny and you feel like you're being silly. So you've got this serious persona, and it's become a part of your personality. You've literally embraced that lie. It's like, this is now me. I'm this serious person. There's no time for jokes, no time for playing. I experience it all the time when I'm coaching managers, executives, and you find there's always the serious one who like, Paul, because my guys, it's okay to just, sometimes, we can joke around, but, you just need to focus. You need to focus, Paul. If you're in Santa, you need to focus, And I see them by the coffee machine, and, I just see them, laughing. Like, my friend, if you want to measure one of the marks of great teams, world-class teams, is they have fun together. And you know what, whenever, 100% of the time when I've asked people, what does fun look like? Guess what they would say? We laugh together. Yeah. God wants to restore laughter to your home. God wants to restore laughter to your Go group. Okay, I don't think any of you have that problem. Okay? I am lovable. I am lovable. I'm easy to love. It's not difficult loving me. How many of you have that mindset? Yeah. Some of you, the script in your mind is, I just push people away, Paul. I just need to figure out because I just push them away. Like, why would someone love me? You know why you think that? Because on the inside, you haven't learned to love yourself. You haven't accepted yourself. So if you haven't accepted yourself, you haven't received the love of Jesus, you're not going to think like, oh, everyone loves me. Everybody loves you. Everybody. You're not going to think that way. I don't know about you, but I generally think I'm a well-liked person. And if people don't like me, then I think like, okay, there must be something wrong here. But because I think I'm well-liked, it gives me confidence to walk in anywhere and to do my thing. Amen? But some of you have got this exaggerated view of yourselves not being loved. Psychologists call it the persecutory superego. The persecutory superego. When everyone is against me. Did you see how she just looked at me? People read things from SMSs, things that haven't even got a tone or anything. It's just words only. Do you see? What is it? And then someone else goes and sees the same thing. They're like, okay, they're just saying it. Yeah, cool. No, but the way they said it. But they didn't say any bad things. It's because of your internal world. Your internal world is faulty. Next week we're going to talk about the power of words, the power of the words we speak, because that shapes our reality. Amen? Okay, so I always have something to give. That's another good script. If you go around and you see yourself as powerless, I've got nothing to give, I've got nothing, you begin to live that way. But people who are whole, their mindset is, I've always got something to give. If I go into a meeting, I've got a word of encouragement. I've got, in case of some people, I've got a song, I've got this, I've got that. Those are your resources. It might not always be cash. You've always got something to give. How many of you know that children, infants, don't think that way? Infants don't think in terms of, I've got power to give, power to bless. Children think in terms of, gimme, 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 my name is Jimmy. Gimme, 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 my name is Jimmy. They just think of their own needs. Amen? So, last one here is, I can contribute to most discussions. That makes you whole. Some of you have got a mindset of, like, I've got nothing to say. 3, when you are whole, you are free to give. When you're a whole person, you're free to give. Galatians 6 verse 10 says, therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all people, especially to those who belong to the family of believers. That word good is the word benefit. Let us benefit all people. So whenever you are around people, your presence must be a blessing, not a curse. Now, how many of you know that if you've got missing parts within you, if you're not whole, people will always find it draining being around you. Do you know the kind of people I'm talking about? Yes, they are well groomed. Yes, they speak so eloquently and nicely. Yes, we admire them. But whenever you're around them, you come out not feeling like I've benefited, but feeling like they've sucked you dry. Do you know why? Because when they have got missing parts, I'm telling you, it's something that will always happen. When you've got missing parts within you, it's like you've got this straw, and the other person is, juice in a glass, and you literally go and you suck them dry. And then when you finish sucking that person dry and they've got nothing left to give, you go to the next person. And when you leave that person, you're like, I don't know, I just stopped loving them. I don't know, it just went. Those feelings just went. And now you're on to the next person. And you're addicted to that person. So you think, oh, this is wonderful, this is great, and so on. You suck them dry. They've got nothing left to give. And what you do? I don't know, it's like we just fell out of love. Next. And you live your whole life like that. Amen? People do that. But you see, when you're whole, you're free to give. When you're a whole person, you can look at someone who mocks you or treats you badly, but you're so full of the love of God, you're able to look and like, are they okay? Why would they say that? Oh, there's brokenness in there. Let me just help them out. When you're not whole, when you're insecure about, am I really loved or aren't I really loved? I'm not too sure. Am I really respected or aren't I really respected, and so on. They just need to say one thing and it sets you off. In a couple of weeks, we're going to start talking about toxic emotions and how to detox your emotional life. Amen? One of the things about anger is often we feel angered when we are self-centered. We feel angered when we ourselves are not complete, and we're like, oh, this person said this to me and it affects me. When you're so full of the love of the Father, you're able to minister to people even if they hurt you. That's why the Bible says, do good to those who persecute you. Do good. You're able to do that when the love of God is shed abroad in your heart. Amen? Amen. Okay, so as we unpack this scripture, you'll see that word opportunity, like therefore, as we have opportunity, I know that the Bible school students were given this as homework, but let me just say it's the word kairos, okay? It's the word kairos. I don't want to unpack it because I'll spoil their homework, but as we have opportunity, we must do good to all people. That's speaking of timing, right? Whole people are powerful. They have the power to do good in any situation. Their behavior is not based on how they're treated by others. You can mock me, you can treat me badly, but I won't stoop down to your level. That's what you should say to people out there. I'm a kind person because that's my new nature in Christ, not because you were kind to me. I don't do things just because you did them to me first. I do them in response to what I'm seeing the Father doing. That's what whole people say. I'm giving you scripts for your own life. I'm speaking over my life, but I'm giving you scripts for your own life. Jesus says, I do only what I see the Father doing. Yeah. Jesus operated in response to what he saw the Father doing. Did he see the Father loving him? He says, I've given you this love in the same way that the Father has loved me. Whatever the Father did to Jesus, he did to us. A lot of people react to how people treat them. I know with this guy you have to act like this. I know with this person. No. You treat people with kindness because of the kindness of God in your heart. That's what whole people do. Amen. You're free to give love. Materially, there is no fear of lack. One of the reasons people don't give is because of fear of lack. When you know that you're complete, he's provided for you, you're free to give because you know that it's a constant supply from him anyway. And the more you're giving out, the more he entrusts you as a steward. I don't know about you. I don't necessarily want a fat bank balance just for myself, just sitting there. But I want God to entrust me with lots of wealth that can be a conduit for his kingdom. Amen. And the more I find myself trustworthy in that, guess what he's going to do? He'll say, okay, this person has passed the test. I can give him more so that he's more of a conduit. You can never outgive God. Never. Okay? A whole person understands that giving and power have no zero base. See, some people, when it comes to empowering other people, they've got this mindset of, hey, if I've got 10 units of power and you've got 0 units of power, if I give you 2 units, then I'm down to 8 and you've got 2. Ooh, if I give you another 2 units of power, ooh, I'm down to 6 and you're up to 4, right? Power has no zero base. Giving has no zero base. In other words, when I give away power, I'm empowering you to empower me to empower you. Amen? When you're a giver, when you're a generous person, you're giving. And in giving, you also get more to give. Amen? There's no zero base in God's economy. That's what a lot of people fail to understand. You become a generous soul. You become generous with your words. You're full of kindness with your words. Not the kind of person where it's like, afterwards, like, oh, did you see so-and-so's shoes? They were so nice. Did you tell them? Ah, no. Did you say, oh, did you hear so-and-so's message? It was really great. Did you tell them? No. You're generous with your words. You're generous with your compliments. You're generous with money. You're generous with stuff. Amen? You're generous with time. You give despite the risk involved. I want to encourage you men in here. Offer your strength to your wives. One of the primary roles of husbands is to protect their wives. Your wife should feel safe with you. Amen? Those of you not yet married, build yourself up, gentlemen, as guys who will protect their wives. Guys who will offer their strength to their wives. Wives and single ladies preparing. I want to encourage you. Offer your beauty to your husband. Don't be afraid. There's risk involved, but don't be afraid. Be givers. Be generous. 4. When you are whole, you're responsible for yourself, and therefore you don't compare yourself with others. Verse 4, each one should test their own actions. That word test means to approve, to examine, to discern. So when you do stuff, examine yourself. How am I actually doing? Right? And then it goes on to say, then they can take pride in themselves alone without comparing themselves to someone else. This is very subtle. This is very, very subtle. But very often, you compare yourselves with others. You see, you can see someone taking their family to a nice, fancy place in terms of holiday. You might not even have the cash. Subconsciously, you pick that up and you're like, oh, they're doing that. You then feel guilty that you're not doing that with your family. Then you end up trying to make it happen with your family, but it's not coming from your heart. It's coming because of your own inadequacy. You feel inadequate based on someone else's standards. And then your family is blessed and they're saying, oh, this is great, but you keep talking about, but do you know how much it costs? But are you guys ready? Are we going to go? And you become difficult and they wonder, how come you coming on this holiday anyway? It's because you're doing it for the wrong reasons. You end up burnt out doing things because you're not running your own race, because you're not whole. Amen? God has called us to a place of wholeness. God has called us to operate out of love. Goes on to say, should bear your own burdens. In the King James, that's what it says. This is the issue of boundaries. When you are whole, you exercise healthy boundaries. You know what's your race to run. Goes on to talk about interdependency, where it says, bear one another's burdens. So you bear other people's burdens, but you bear your own too. Go and study that. That's interdependency. When you start out in life, you're dependent. Mommy, I need some milk. Daddy, come wipe my bum. That's a real script that's very regular in my household. No, it's actually, Mommy, wipe my bum. And then Daddy goes along. I said, I want Mommy, not you. That's a common script in my household. But when you're young, when you're an infant, you're a baby. Amen? But as you get older in your teens, you tend to assert your independence. But when you're a mature, whole adult, you're interdependent. I know what my strengths are. I know what my weaknesses are. I know your strengths. I know your weaknesses. And we work together. That's wholeness. Bear one another's burdens, but each one should know what his responsibility is. That's what the scripture is saying. And that's what whole people do. When you're not whole, you go and you try and solve everyone else's problems. No boundaries. You try to carry everyone's burdens, but you're not even carrying your own. I know someone right now, I was coaching their boss, and the boss says to me, you know what, I asked this person to do X for me. No, I didn't actually ask them. I'd asked them to do X and Y and Z for me. But they hadn't done it. They hadn't done their job. But one day I was with a friend of theirs, a colleague and a friend of theirs, and they heard me speaking to this person. They said, oh, I can do that. You know, people like that. And she said, I turned around and I said, but you aren't even doing your job. Why do you now want to help doing this? There are a lot of Christians who live their lives like that. That's lack of wholeness. What has God called you to do? What is your assignment? What are your responsibilities? Moms, find out, what do my kids need from me that only I can give? And then delegate the other stuff and make sure you're strong on those things. But don't be busybodies, doing stuff for everyone else, but the very things that are burdens for you to carry yourself, you have not carried. Let me quickly close. I'm over time now. Fifth, when you are whole, you sow into the spirit, not the flesh. Verse 7 says, do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. Whoever sows to please their flesh, from the flesh will reap destruction. Whoever sows to please the Spirit, from the Spirit will reap eternal life. That word, do not be deceived, it's do not wander from the truth. Do not wander from safety. Do not wander from virtue. God's will is safe. Don't wander from it. Question, which engine are you living from? Which engine are you living from, the flesh or the spirit? You reap what you sow. That word to sow speaks of to scatter. It's linked to the word sperm. How many of you know that if a guy's sperm connects with the female's egg, there's a harvest? Amen? There's something that is reaped. Amen? You can't just pray it away. There's something that is reaped. How many of you know that in the spirit realm, I'm going to explain something very powerful to you now. In the spirit realm, that law also exists. And God has called us in our lives to watch what we are sowing. How many of you know that if I've got a bag of mealies and I'm walking and the mealie seeds are just dropping by themselves and I'm not even aware of it, mealies are going to grow. In our flower garden at home, we've got tomatoes that have grown. And we're like, Who sowed those tomatoes? Someone must have accidentally dropped some seed, and we're getting these beautiful tomatoes from them that we're blown away by, but it wasn't intentional. How many of you know that you can do a lot of sowing unintentionally? A lot of scattering of seeds unintentionally. Question, what are you sowing? Are you sowing things of the Spirit, or are you sowing into hatred? Are you sowing into malice? Amen? What are you sowing? There's some people who never sow, but they expect a harvest of good stuff in their lives. They're like, Pastor, just lay hands on me. Prophet, just lay hands on me and it will happen. But they don't sow. They haven't been sowing into righteousness in their lives. Life doesn't work like that, ladies and gentlemen. There was a guy, true story, he was a farmer, he became a Christian, and he began to preach the gospel, and he forgot, or didn't forget, but he didn't plant. Just before harvest time, he discovers, oh, let me start planting. He plants, but he planted too late. He didn't sow seed in the right time, and he lost about $500,000 US worth of seed. But you know what the sad thing is? He went to a particular preacher, teacher, and he said to this guy, what happened? He was mad with God. He was like, what happened? God should have blessed me and supernaturally grown my harvest because I was preaching the gospel. He shouldn't have been mad with God. He should have been mad with himself, like many Christians today, because they're expecting harvest, but they're not willing to sow. I think that deserved a louder amen. Then finally, number 6, when you're whole, you become resilient. When you're whole, you become resilient. Galatians 6 verse 9. Let us become weary. Let us not become weary in doing good. That word weary means failing in heart. How many of you know that your bravery and your courage is in your heart? That's why you have movies like Braveheart. Let not your heart fail. Let us not become weary in doing good. For at the proper time, we will reap a harvest. I love the word there, proper. It's actually the word due. It actually speaks of in your own time, you'll reap harvest. Many of us are trying to reap a harvest in our unwhole state. We're trying to reap a harvest, but it's not in our own time. It's like a woman who's 5 months pregnant, comparing herself with a woman who's 7 months pregnant and saying, I want to beat her. I want to have my baby before her. No, you will have your baby in your own due time, in your own season. And how many of you, we've got seasons? People look at my life, they look at other people's life, and they're like, how come he's had that breakthrough? But you don't know when the sowing started. Amen? You'll have your breakthrough in your own time, in the proper time, in the due season, your expected date of delivery. And how many of you know that it's calculated back to the time the seed was sown? Amen. Some people will sow seed today, and by tomorrow they're like, Lord, supernatural acceleration, come on, what's happening, Jesus? And they get angry with God, and then they compare themselves with someone who planted 3 months ago. Yeah. When you're a whole person, you're patient, you're resilient, you've got what we call grit. Grit is commitment to long-term goals despite the obstacles. Grit is that thing that you need to keep pushing through, keep pushing through, keep pushing through, keep sowing in the right time, and then you have your harvest. That's what happens in life. In its own due time. I believe some of us need delayed gratification. I believe some of us need to know that our insides are big, that ability to bounce back. That ability to bounce back. You can hit me down, I keep bouncing back. That's resilience. That ability to block out the naysayers. When you're playing at your former home ground like those professional soccer players and everyone is booing you. I saw Wayne Rooney last night there he was taking a corner, and you can see the mouths of the people there at the other home ground, and they and you've got all the stewards trying to like do this. Things are being thrown and they're blocking them. Is that resilience? Is that ability to block out all the negative stuff and to still remain focused and play really well. Let's pray. Let's pray.